Rick, how you doing, man?
I just have a smile every time I see your face show up. It just tickles me. It just makes me lighthearted to see you. I just love being with you, Keith.
Oh, thank you, Rick, man. Hey, I thought we just get right to it, man. Just kind of like how the ego does,
Okay.
but in a different kind of way. The ego doesn't serve us. I thought the title of this show would be "My Propensity to," and you fill in the blank. So
Oh,
for me, my propensity to blame, and I kind of talked about this in another show, and you told me that your propensity is to look for the negative or see the negative. So I thought we would start off with something pretty trivial, and then we'd go from there. Okay. So since I mentioned what I noticed about you, maybe you can pick that up and then just kind of talk about how that, if you're not mindful, colors, how you see the world. So I was at your house and I was on the computer doing something for a grad school class. You were just finished making a great breakfast for Brian and me. And you were putting some things in the dishwasher. And I heard you kind of laugh at yourself. And I was like, man, Rick, what are you laughing about? And you just kind of told me like, what it was about. So can you pick up there?
sure. So you're exactly right. I have a lot of defects, a lot of holes in my practice that I'm always trying to work on. One is judging, and part of judging is to see things in a way where I'm always assuming that it's not right, it's not working out, something's bad that's happened, and that it's my fault, and I'm incompetent, and I was negligent or whatever. So in the dishwasher example, what happened was I thought that I forgot to put in that little pellet that you put in that makes the dishes clean. And because I looked at the first fork and it looked like it was still dirty, but it turned out to be just a shadow. So I go into this big thing about, oh, the fork's dirty, I didn't put in the dishwashing stuff again, I'm an idiot, how come these guys are watching, I look like a fool. So I had all of that, wanting to look good, also seeing just the negative in this happening. And then I caught myself. That's one thing the practice has done for me, is at least I know when I'm screwing up, and I know when I'm down on the wrong path. And that was snapping me right out of it. And the fact that you said, hey, what are you laughing about? And first of all, here's something I didn't tell you. When you asked me what I was laughing about, and I was laughing at my own negativity, I was going to lie and say, oh, I was thinking of a joke that I forgot to tell you guys, because I didn't want to have to admit that I was being negative. Isn't that goofy? But it's like this whole series of things that our ego does to try to make us look good or avoid looking bad.
Yeah, 100%, man. And I was so inspired by that, man, because I was like, I do the same thing, but it's not about being negative. It's about blaming people. Like,
Yeah.
so like where you blame yourself for everything, I blame others. So, I mean, like I'm perfect, man. It's not me. So, and I kind of talked about this, before, but I think it's probably worth mentioning for people that may have not seen the other podcast, is that what's scanning for me at all times, man, it's my propensity to blame others. Like, it's all the time. And like, it could be something very simple, man. It could be like, I don't know, my favorite spoon is that, so I've been a connoisseur of oatmeal, as you know, for forever. Like, when I discovered oatmeal, man, I was like, this is a perfect breakfast meal. And so I have a certain spoon that I like. And when I used to be in financial planning, I would go to this bed and breakfast when I had to stay overnight, where I had a client in Prescott, and the place is called the Hacienda Inn. And so they have these spoons, man, that are just perfect for oatmeal. They got the big, oval-like face. They're not your regular spoon, man. This is an oatmeal spoon. And so I the select spoon. So I go to the silverware drawer out of this habit to grab my spoon, and it's missing. My first thing is like, and so-and-so didn't put the spoon back. It just went straight to blame. And I'm rolling with this, making enemies over a spoon. Like, it doesn't matter, man. So of course, the next day, I go into my bag to pull out my laptop power cord, and I find a spoon. I'm just like, oh. Now I should have gone back to apologize to the person, because I mean, I never told them that I blamed them, and I, you know, I issued an indictment against them. I never told them that, but I felt like I need to go apologize, man, because I do that left and right. So because I do this, I wanted to give my friends this trump card. And my trump card is that when I blame, and I will, when I do, all you need to do, you can't come to me and say, what are you doing? Like, no, I didn't do that. No, because I'll get defensive. What you do is like, huh, sounds like blame. And then just that little bit of humor with it will give me time to catch myself, to become mindful of this propensity to blame. And I'll follow it up with apology. I'll be like, yeah, you're right, I'm sorry. But that's what I do, man, like all the time.
Doesn't it feel funny when you catch yourself doing that? You know, you think, I thought I'm over this. You know, I thought I dealt with this a year ago, you know, or whatever.
100%, man. 100% of the time that will happen. Can't find the remote control. Car keys aren't where I thought I left them. And living alone, I'll find somebody else, like, I live, living alone. Somebody else came in to move the car keys. It's not my fault. Like all of that, man. I just have the propensity, and other people have the same thing. And I'd be interested from our viewers about what their propensity to, my propensity to blank is. So hopefully as people see me in the hallways at Mayo Clinic, or they listen to a podcast, or they comment, that they'll share what their propensity is. The cost, I want to talk about what the cost of that is, Rick. The cost of that for me is I get to be right all the time. And when you get to be right, what I've learned is it strengthens my ego. And what's the ego bring? It only brings suffering. So, and not only that, for that split second or that moment that I'm in that space blaming the other person, what is also happening is I'm distancing myself from them, and I'm losing the present moment. And I want to have deeper, more meaningful connections with people. But by me introducing this propensity into the relationship, I'm doing the exact opposite. And I think a lot of people do that with their kids. They automatically have this idea that's running about their children, and it's rarely giving them the benefit of the doubt, because we want them to turn out a certain way. We've had some life experiences, and we want them to have, a life that is free of a lot of suffering. And when we see them doing things that may create more suffering for them, we have this automatic response to correct them. But the correction very quickly turns into they've got to be perfect. And we started to treat treat them in that way. And I think we would just want to, just pick one person and just kind of say, like, hey, my propensity with this person is to be this way. And it could be your spouse. You come in from a long day and they're sitting on the couch. Your propensity to be like, man, did I marry the laziest guy in the world? Or you do something really, nice for the other person, but they rarely do something and reciprocate. So in that case, your propensity to be like, why don't they just give back to me what I give to them? Like, they're so selfish. And your propensity becomes, the lens that you see the other person is always being selfish. So just, there's a lot of opportunity to practice that, and to I wanted to say correct, but to not give your propensities the space to really cause more suffering in your life for you and for others.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. It gets in the way of a good relationship. It gets in the way of any relationship, actually, when you're starting to either be negative like me or judgmental and blaming like you. But I think that those aren't the only things that we're just using those as examples. There are many, many things that we do all the time that are basic human things that we do. I mean, they're the subject of sitcom stories and, things you see in the movies and dialogue in books. It's all about human foible. But the point is, if you want to try to get past suffering and feeling like you're at the mercy of your ego and whether people like you, or whether you're always looking superior in your own mind to other people, when you need to get past that, because in order to have a complete and full life, you need to have a relationship that's based on who you really are and not about how superior you may feel to somebody else. And that's That's a big part of all of what ego is trying to do. It's trying to make you different and special and superior to so many of the other people. In fact, all people, I would argue. And I think the way to capture that is to realize that it's coming from a desire that you want to be fulfilled in every way that you possibly can. So most of our suffering has to do with wanting things to be a certain way, or actually wanting things, material things in our lives. And when you mention the idea of having, a judgment so you feel superior, or you want someone to blame, it's the idea that you're taking that responsibility for a foible and placing it somewhere else where it doesn't belong. And that's a lie. That's a continual lie that you're telling yourself and that you're living, and that gets in the way of being authentic. And I say that's the cause of more and more suffering. And what's surprising to me is that people don't even realize it. They're just on this wheel.
I didn't for years.
Me neither. We were just on this wheel. This is the way people live. This is how my folks were, how my family was, how my colleagues were. And then I started to find maybe one or two people in my life who were completely different. And they had a sense of calmness, a sense of delight in small things. They weren't materialistic. They seemed to have some quality of appreciation for what life had given them that I didn't have. Mm-hmm. Then I started to pay attention to how they behaved. And then I asked them what they were reading and what they studied and what their habits were. And I started to put my toe in a few of those little things. And some things resonated and some things didn't. But the point was, I realized that I needed to change because I was feeling empty, and I was feeling on edge, and feeling as if nothing was satisfying enough for me. If I wanted $100, if I had $100, I wanted $200. If I had a nice car, I wanted a better car. If I had a pretty wife, I wanted to see if I could maybe get another girl to acknowledge that I was worthy, and maybe we could have a little something going. I mean, it was a really bad place to go, to be in your life. And I think that all of that creates the kind of cloud of uncertainty and discomfort, and it is solvable. It's hard, but it's solvable if you can get away from that.
Exactly. And to have friends to let you know about it. And I think the practice when you're doing it, and it's just a practice of picking one person or one thing to where your propensity comes out that doesn't serve you. You mentioned superior, and a lot of people, at least for me, I would have said back in the day that I'm not superior. But I think what will help me and what might help listeners is to think of superior as its close friend or twin is judgment. And superior judgment gives you the opportunity or the impetus to be superior. So some people are like, I'm not superior. Like, I don't need a lot of material things. I don't need the fancy house, the car, all this money. Like, I don't need that. Well, the superior for you is not the money or the material things. Your superiority comes from judging people that may have those things.
Yeah, that's right.
So you get to be right about them. Or like, I care about the environment and other people don't, and if you don't, you're an enemy. Or I think this way. Well, you get to be superior about that because you're different from other people. To your point, Rick, the ego wants to be different from everyone else, or it wants to be right. So anytime you are hitching your wagon up to being right, and how you're feeling is rooted in judgment, then you're being superior. For a lot of people, it's how they look, aesthetically, and physically, they may be considered beautiful. Well, most of that you had nothing to do with. I mean, that's genetics coming together, and you taking credit for something you didn't even do. Like me taking credit for my height. Like, really? Like, I had nothing to do with that. People say, "Oh man, you got great height." Like, thanks, but I didn't have anything to do with it. Like, Keith, I love your caramel skin color. Thanks, I didn't have anything to do with it. Like, I'm taking credit for that. So I mean, the thick lips that I talk about, that I suffered a lot when I was a kid. Now they're all of a sudden everybody wants thick lips. I had nothing to do with that. You know what I'm saying? So just the things that we're superior about, or even if there's something that you did have something to do with, like you're credentialed, and you're really got, you know, are got degrees hanging on the walls and certifications, then you get to be superior to other people there. Like, you want to let all that go. At the end of the day, are you loving? Are you kind? Are you a servant to others?
That's
You
right.
know, do you have a mastery of self? Like what's going on there? And I think if you can just focus there in those areas, the propensities that are self-sabotaging, that cause you and others suffering, will become more less and less pronounced. And then on the other side of that is peace, man. Peace and connection and joy.
That's the payoff. That's the payoff. And that's the whole point of all of this. It's not to say that the feelings of judgment and superiority and negativity and blame and all of those things you ought to erase because you'll be a better person. That's true, but that's not the point we're making. The point is that those things are what's causing you to suffer and feel anxious and feel empty and feel like your life is not going anywhere or has any meaning. Get rid of that crap and you'll be on your way to something much, much better.
Exactly. Rick, thanks, man. Love you, man. Great show.
Hey, thanks, buddy. I learned something today too.
And
And I forgot to compliment you on your hat. Is that yeah, Tennessee Volunteers, man. Shelby County, Tennessee.
Shelby
right?
County, baby. Shelby County. Represent. I love you, Rick.
I love you, man. Adios.
Adios.